Okay, today I'm here with Bill Westfall. Bill, what branch of the military did you serve in?
The Army
In the Army, what years?
from 42 until 45,
Wow. So you saw some, I'm assuming some action in World War II?
all of it.
All of it. What part, where were you stationed at?
I was in Europe. Of
Europe?
course. We landed in Africa first and stayed there about 6 months. And then we went to England, and we were there, well, about 6 months until the invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And we went in on the invasion D+3,
Wow.
and then fought till the end of the war.
Wow. So you were pretty much over there for 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Unreal. How old were you when you enlisted?
I was 22, 3, something like that.
Okay. So did you go to college or anything? Did you graduate
No.
high school?
Went to high school
Yeah.
here
Here in the area?
in senior high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you born in were you born and raised here in Springfield?
Right.
Okay, wow. So 22-year-old guys were probably all willing to go fight for their country about that time. Is that kind of the
Was what?
is that why you joined up? And
I didn't join up. I was drafted.
you were drafted.
Yeah.
So what was your job in the Army?
Well, I had about 3 different jobs in the Army after basic training. When they shipped us to Africa, I joined the 2nd Armored Division in service company, the 67th Armored Regiment. And I had been to supply sergeant school in Fort Knox, and so I went to work in the supply sergeant section.
Okay.
And then when we left England for the invasion, they switched me off. They had no room for me in the service department, and they switched me to the gasoline tank as
Okay.
an assistant driver on a 2.5-ton truck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Had you ever driven a truck like that before?
Oh, yeah.
You had?
Well,
When you were doing the supply
right,
stuff?
right, yeah.
Is it kind of, did you have to do, I mean, I would assume you'd have to do some sort of like CDL training for that stuff, right? I mean, as far as to operate that type of machinery.
No, it wasn't.
Not a big deal?
No, well, we were used to standard drives back in those days.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That makes sense. But at the same time, you're not driving it in wartime too, which I'm sure is a little bit different of a situation.
Well, yeah, it was different. A 4-speed truck, yeah.
Yeah. So, as a kid from the Ozarks, how was landing in Africa in the 40s?
Well, it was it was different. Of course, we landed in Oran, Africa, and that was the northern part, just off the Mediterranean Sea. And we stayed in northern Africa for the 6 months I was there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we went up to Tunis, and the 66th Armored Regiment, the 2nd Armored, invaded Sicily. And we were ready to, the 67th was ready, but we didn't have to
You
invade
didn't get
that.
called? Yeah. Wow. Did you get any chance to see Africa outside of where you were there while you were there for
No,
6
just
months?
the northern
Just
section.
the northern section?
From Oran on up to Bizerte and Tunis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then went into England and then was
And
part...
we came back to Oran after a few months, after that invasion of Sicily. And then we went to England.
Wow. So did you stay once they got you into the gasoline driver job, is that where you stayed through the rest of the war?
I stayed, well, from the time the invasion at D+3, we got together. I got on a truck with a corporal, and he came down with malaria, and I was his assistant driver, but he had to go back to the hospital, and I think they sent him to England. We never ever saw him again.
Really?
No.
Wow. Did you think but getting malaria at that time was a pretty serious deal.
Well, they had caught it, several of them in our company had caught that down in the Louisiana maneuvers before they went overseas.
Oh, wow.
Several in the company that would come down with it just ever so often.
Yeah.
And this corporal came down with it. Like I say, at that time it was just about a couple of weeks after the St. Lo breakthrough, which was to me the start of the war, for us anyhow.
Yeah.
And they didn't have hospitals set up to take care of that here.
Yeah.
So they sent him back to England, and we never saw him again. He never came back to join the Army, and I took over driving the gas truck and drove it all through France, and Belgium, and Holland, and into Germany.
Yeah.
Then I got another job. After we'd gone through those 3 countries, the company finally got back together. We hadn't been together all through the war. I mean, we were separated. You never knew who you were going to gas up, whether it was A company or Z company,
Yeah.
And but we got together when we got to Germany, and the first sergeant came to me, and he had a major with him, and he said, Bill, Major Sally needs a helper. And so we talked, and he said he needs somebody that can type and cut stencils and do work. Have you ever done this work? And I said, yes, I did some in civilian life. And they said, well, you'll have to transfer with Major Sally to headquarters, 67th. And I said, well, how long will this be for? And he said, well, nobody knows exactly how long it'll be, but they've got to get out a certain amount of work. And I said, well, I'm not going to give up my truck. I said, I've got a good partner with me, and I'm not going to give it up for 6 weeks or whatever it might take, and then come back and they throw me in a motor pool, and I'll be somebody else's assistant driver.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know whether I'll get along with them, and I've got the best partner in the world. And so the major stepped over to the first sergeant there, and he said, you transfer this man to me permanently. And he said, I'll see that he has a job. And so we talked again, and I decided to go with the major. And they transferred me to headquarters company. And I went to work for this major, and we put out a lot of information. I had to do a lot of paperwork, and he kept me with him for about 6 months until the end of the war.
Wow. Where was headquarters at?
Well,
Just
everywhere.
Everywhere, wherever he was.
Yeah. Well, at headquarters, our colonel was there that was running the 67th, and the assistant colonel was there, and there was about a dozen majors, and all of them were at headquarters.
So you kind of had, at least at the end of the war, an interesting position in that you were around a bunch of higher ups as this thing was coming to an end. So you kind of got to see, it wasn't that you were out, battling every day, but you got to see what these guys were kind of thinking. So what was the mood like? I mean, what were they?
Well, we had the best colonel, Colonel Paul Disney, and he was, I guess you'd say he knew how to fight the war.
Uh-huh.
And when we went through, like I say, we were the first troops into Belgium and Holland and then to Germany. And right at the end of the war, the Americans was to meet up with the Russians at the Elbe River. And our colonel, Disney, got wounded right at the Elbe River at the end of the war. And I don't know whatever happened to him.
Wow.
But we, that was it. We ended the war at the Elbe River. And that was in May of 44.
So, after you ended there, then what happens? You came home and that was it? Is that what happened?
Well, no. It's kind of funny when the war ended, they counted up the points that people had, the soldiers, and those that had 85 points or more were put on the list to go home. And there was a group of us, I had 83 points.
Oh, no.
I had 83 points, and the way they counted them up, another month would have given me 2 more points.
Oh, man.
And I said, well, will I gain those in the next month? And they said, no, they're cut off right now. You won't gain any more points. You've got 83 points. So they started to get, they sent a lot of the people home that had the 85 points, because it was an old company when I had joined it. So there was a group of us that was getting ready to go to Japan. And then that's when Harry Truman dropped the 2 bombs and ended that war.
Yeah, you didn't have to go.
And so we didn't have to go.
Can you imagine being, after all that, you land in Africa, you go up to England, you go through Belgium, Holland, Germany, through the end of the war, and then they said, okay, well, now we need you in Japan, and you're going to the Pacific.
Yeah, I didn't think they'd ever let me go.
Man, I can't believe that close. Well, what an incredible story. What'd you do after you got out of the military?
Got out?
Yeah, what'd you do?
Well, I had a job. I had a job with the Fruhoff Trailer Company before I went in.
Got drafted?
They had bought the old Springfield wagon factory.
Okay.
And so when I got out of the Army, I had a job waiting for me.
Yeah, you went back.
And but I came back, and I, with the union, I had the #1 spot as a stock chaser at Fruhoff. But when I got back, it's kind of funny. I told him, I said, I don't want to be a stock chaser all my life. And if you've got any other job, I want it. I don't like the unions. I don't want to have anything to do with the union. And I don't want somebody telling me you're only going to make 10 cents more this year, 10 cents more next year, and then we're going to argue, you know. And so the shop foreman that I was talking with and the employment manager, he said, I've got something in mind. He said, turn this man over to me. And he said, I think I've got a job for him. So they made a job, and they were going to switch over from military work to civilian work, building. And so he made me a production clerk. And I worked there at the factory until it closed, which was a little over 2 years. And as luck would have it, the sales and service branch of Fruhoff was right across the street from the factory. And they needed a man, and I went right straight over and went to work there. And I stayed with them until they fired me about 6 years later. And then I went to a former office manager that worked at Fruhoff. He had Hutco Equipment Company. He and another fellow out on the West Bypass. So I went to him, and he hired me immediately, and I went to work for him and stayed there all my working life.
Wow.
Well, in fact, the last 13 years, another fellow and I bought it and worked at
just kept it going?
Yeah.
Well, Bill, I very much appreciate your time today, and thank you so much for coming to lunch with me, and thank you so much for your service.
Yeah. Glad to do it.